My name is James Graves, and welcome to another edition of Night Journey Rewind. He has a brand new CD. Well, it's been out for a minute, but it's called Bright Ideas. We'll get into that later on down the line, but I want to welcome back to the show our friend, Pianist Greg Murphy. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Good, James. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Who is Greg Murphy?
I'm a piano player, musician, composer. I played with Rashid Ali. Right now I'm doing a lot of trio stuff and freelancing around the city, and have a gig coming up in Baltimore with my trio. And I'm just a cat trying to keep the music moving. Those questions always catch me off guard. Who are you? I'm like,
What was it about this music that drew your attention to this is what you wanted to do, this is what you want to play, this is what you love?
Wow. When I started when I started really getting into music in my high school years, as far as just listening, I was like, wow, this is some really interesting stuff. I mean, the first time I heard, I got into jazz basically through fusion, through listening to Chick Corea and Return to Forever and Herbie Hancock and Headhunters.
Oh yeah.
And my older brother had a Chick Corea album called Where Have I Known You Before? And first time I listened to it, I was like, wow, this really sounds this is weird. It sounds like Chinese music to me. And it wasn't, and I don't think it was the association with Chick's last name, Korea, but it was, it was like, it sounded weird to me.
Right.
And then after I listened to it over and over, then it started kind of, started growing on me, and I started realizing the musicianship and the compositions and stuff like that with that Return to Forever album. And later on in life, reading some articles, a couple years later, I heard that that's how a lot of swing era musicians, when they heard bebop, some of them commented that it sounds like Chinese music to me, which is just a part of, not that Chinese music is good or bad or anything like that. It's just something we didn't understand. And so once I started to understand it, how it worked harmonically, and that got me into the more, then I started getting into Miles and Train after that. Mm-hmm. And I started, I had a little bit of musical background, but, once I started realizing, that the music was moving me, that's what got me into wanting to play that music, playing bebop, playing fusion, playing straight ahead, and even playing free jazz,
Right.
Once I got with Rashid Ali, I was playing, a lot of free jazz. I was playing free jazz before I even met Rashid, but the different styles of music, I mean, the music is something where, once I learned how to play, I realized I could kind of express myself and kind of communicate. When I'm playing good, I can communicate to an audience and make them feel good. And that's a beautiful thing, to be able to, because there's a lot of healing involved with music.
Exactly.
And I hear certain music and it's like, it makes me feel good. It just makes me feel relaxed or energized, or like, it's almost like when I hear I remember hearing Coltrane playing Impressions. Mm-hmm. And several times, of course, several different versions, but one particular version, it just got into me and just sent tingles and chills and energy up and down my spine. The solos he was playing, it was just unbelievable. And I get that every once in a while from other artists. But, to be able to feel that, I'm like, wow, that's the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Me.
Exactly.
That's the real deal right there. Hearing when everybody's in tune, and it's an uplifting and
just
energizing.
Clicking. Right.
Yeah, it's clicking, and it feels great.
I heard that. It took me a while to get into John Coltrane when I first got into the music. And so I don't know what it was. I think it was, believe it or not, it was my favorite thing. And it was just something about that song that just opened up my ears and started listening to John differently than what I was before. And that was really the turning point as far as I started really getting in and loving train like I do now.
One of my students, his dad would tell me that his father hated jazz, but he played My Favorite Things for him, and he couldn't stop playing it. It's like there's certain songs that just resonate, communicate with a vast majority of people, especially in jazz. I mean, there's pop stuff that is appealing, I think, to like, obviously a vast majority of people, but there's some tunes in jazz that also, have the same effect, and can be massively popular.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree.
And I don't know what it is with that. It's hard to say, well, if you don't like jazz, how could you be into this? Because that's all it is. It's improvisation, and so it's an interesting thing.
It is real interesting. My name is James Graves. This is Night Journey Rewind. And we're visiting with pianist Greg Murphy, having a great conversation, talking about this music that we love so much. I think it's really hard to really put a definition on the music. I think because it goes too many directions. There's too many different ways of being able to make the music compatible, coming in different directions compared to other music that's a little bit more structured.
Right. I mean, because you can call jazz improvised music, but there's improvised music that's not jazz. So, and then there's, varying definitions of and certain people like this style of jazz, straight ahead, bebop, free jazz, and, some people like all styles. So it encompasses a lot, and it also, people have strong opinions on which particular artists and styles that they think represents real jazz, and what represents noise.
Right.
And so that's the that's part of the beauty of it. I think that's part of the beauty of it, because it encompasses so many things. But if you look at where it comes from, it comes from years and years of struggle and pain and love and sweat and tears,
Right.
from the African American experience, from slavery, from rhythms from Africa, from harmonies from Europe, from New Orleans, but it comes mostly from the African American experience
Right.
in America.
Well, that is true, but you went through some trials and tribulations that you really went to a low point, but you still stuck in playing this music and turned yourself around. Talk a little bit about that struggle and not go real deep into it, but then, how you were able to just say, hey, you know what? I can do this.
Well, I mean, I got caught up into the, once I moved to New York, and, I went overboard with, with substance abuse,
right.
and that whole lifestyle of hanging out and, first wanting just to be cool and wanting to be accepted by the hip folks. I was going to say hipsters, but that takes on a different term these days. But the hip cats in my neighborhood in Harlem, I wanted to because I was kind of alienated a little bit because I'm light skinned, and I was like, I didn't fit in as well, and I wanted to fit in, and then eventually I became comfortable with the after hours folks, or the
right. I know what you're saying.
Folks who were out there and
living the dream, I guess, at that time.
Yeah, some folks were living the dream. Some folks were. It's just kind of part of the culture of drugs and hustlers and stuff like that. That's kind of part of a lot of jazz scenes and a lot of the clubs and the late night and the after hours scene. So anyway, I got caught up into that, and basically I was, became homeless and wasn't playing much music and was struggling and was, getting locked up a lot, spending time in jail. Eventually I realized I had to do something, and I thank God that I was able to get past and, try to, because I realized I'm like, damn, I didn't come to New York to be, to be locked up in jail.
Right, I understand.
I didn't come here to be homeless and stuff like that. I got to get my act together. So I was able to do that with the help of a lot of people and a lot of organizations, but a lot of perseverance. So I was able to get clean and then try to get back to pursuing my dream of playing music. And, so fortunately, I was able to do that and start from the ground up and start recording again, start performing again. So I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of cool people in my corner, including my family. And now that I'm married, I have a wife that's in my corner like 97.5% of the time.
That's good. That's a good percentage right there, bro. That's a pretty good percentage. I wouldn't complain about that at all,
Yeah.
I would not complain about that at all.
I know. So I feel fortunate, and I'm lucky. Then I was able to, and it's funny because my friend Jay Rodriguez, he was like, you gotta put out another record. You gotta. I was like, yeah. I said, come on over to this. I have a timeshare in this studio, and so I recorded some solo pieces, and he recorded them for me. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So then I started thinking about putting out some more songs around that with a band, and so then I started working with trying to do a new record, which became Blues for Miles, and I did some crowdfunding. I got some help from some people to help put out that record, and then I put out Summer Breeze, the one that we interviewed for, eventually, and because of that, and was lucky enough to get a label to give me a little help on that, Wailing City Sound, and then that led to the new record, Bright Idea.
My name is James Graves. This is Night Journey Rewind, and we're visiting, having a great conversation with pianist Greg Murphy. You, along with Lawrence Clark, had a lot to say how strong drummer Rashid Ali was in your professional life and also in your personal life. Can you talk just briefly about this brother?
Well, Rashid, I met him in Chicago just very briefly in the late 80s, and when I was still living there. And once I moved to New York, and I met him through a bass player, Tyler Mitchell. And as soon as I moved to New York, I ran into Tyler. This was in 87, and Tyler took me down to Rashid's house, and we clicked right away. Rashid liked the way I played. I think he really liked the way I played because I busted up his piano. I broke like 7 keys because I was trying, I don't think it was amplified. And this was when he had he had his studio in his apartment, in his loft, and he had an upright piano. So anyway, that I played really hard trying to keep up with him, and we got together, and I mean he liked me. It was all about him, he liked the way I played, so he started calling me for some gigs. And then he had all these different ensembles, and I worked with Arthur Rames in the beginning, and Antoine Roney, and Tyler Mitchell. We went on the road, and then it was Robbie Coltrane and Matt Garrison and Gene S. We went on the road and did some recordings, and then it was Prima Materia, Wilbur Morris, and Louis Bellaginis, and then so different bands with Rashid, and then it became the quintet. Then eventually, I got stuck in that lifestyle I was talking about earlier,
right?
And then I was off the scene for a little while, and then he started playing with Lawrence, and I think in the early 2000s he started playing with Lawrence Clark and Yoris Tepe and Jemani Smith, and then I joined that band. Rashid, gave me another break and got me back in his band, and that band became the Rashid Ali Quintet, and we did a lot of work with that band. Yeah, I also played with. I did one gig with By Any Means with William Parker and Charles Gale, and but Rashid had so many different configurations, and he used me on a lot of those gigs, and throughout the late 80s, 90s, and in the 2000s.
Wow.
And but that gig with Lawrence, that was when Rashid really started to take off, with where he was able to take a quintet on the road consistently, and we did a lot of tours and a lot of festivals and stuff like that, and we started to have a really good time with the band sound, with the sound of the quintet. With when Josh Evans joined the band after Jemani Smith left to play with Michael Bublé, and then the quartet really started gelling, and we had some good gigs. And the last thing we recorded was live in Europe. Last gig we had was in Toronto, I think with the Art of Jazz Festival. But a few months before that, we recorded something in Tampere, Finland, and that became Rashid's last record from his group that came out. Some other stuff came out after he passed, but that was the one that we put out together.
Right.
We all put that out, and yeah. So I mean, it was a great experience playing with Lawrence, Josh, and Yoris, and Don Pate would play some gigs on bass, and Lakeisha Benjamin played some gigs with us. We expanded it to sextet sometimes, or be a quintet when one of the horn players couldn't make it. And so yeah, I mean, it was a great experience.
Sounds like it was a great time.
And he would, and throughout the years, I mean, me and Rashid would hang. We would hang out, especially once I got my act together after,
right,
20 years ago or whatever, 18 years ago, and we would go to movies, and we'd hang out and just do things besides
playing.
Besides playing, yeah, and talk, And it's interesting too, because he said that's what Train would do with him. They would hang out, they had a brief time. I mean, he knew Train, from Philly, like 5-10 years before he started playing with Train. But they would, once they started playing together, Rashid told me they would hang out and go to dinner, go to movies and stuff like that, and kick it.
Cool.
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for some of those conversations.
Man, who are you telling? My name is James Graves. This is Night Journey Rewind, and we're visiting with pianist Greg Murphy. Now, let's talk about this new project that it's been out for a minute, though, called Bright Idea. Now, you got a monster two-piece along with you with this, with Watts on, Tane on drums, and Eric Wheeler?
Eric Wheeler,
yeah. On bass, man. How was you able to pull that off? Well, I shouldn't say it like that, they'll make it sound like it's impossible, but...
Right. Well, I've known, Eric Wheeler, he's played with me on my last few projects, and I met him in Manhattan, 5 or 6, 7 years ago or something like that. But Tane I've known since New Orleans, since I lived in New Orleans in the 80s. He came down there to, I think that's right when Branford and Kenny Kirkland left to play with Sting, and I was living in New Orleans at the time, and they had their premiere for the movie, and I went and hung out with Kenny, and I met Tane too in that process, because Tane obviously was with Wynton's band back then, and so I've known him for a while, and we'd run into each other from time to time, but I finally played with him a few years ago when I had a gig in Pennsylvania, and the club owner put us together, and Eric came to do the gig, so we had a trio gig in Easton, Pennsylvania, and then I was like, man, we really sound good together. I mean, of course, Tane is a monster. I didn't realize how much of a monster he was. I knew he was great, but playing with somebody, then you get the feel, and so I was always, and there's one the title tune of Bright Idea has a little funky thing going on in it, and I knew Tane had that perfect thing for that record, so I said, let me see if I can get Tane, and then so the label was able to help me do that, and so we were thinking about doing it in his studio in Pennsylvania, but we eventually went to where I had recorded at before in Queens. Yeah, we had a rehearsal at my house, and we put it together, and it sounded pretty good, and I was able to do really well. On the nationally with airplay, so because it was #1 a couple times.
Fantastic.
On the Jazz Week charts, yeah. So we're trying to keep it going, trying to put some stuff together. It's always a challenge. I'm doing other trio stuff with different cats, because Tane is busy, and frankly, it's I have to get the right amount of bread to have to have cats that are super busy all the time. He's not going to take $100 gig when he's somebody could call him for $1,000 gig. So
I understand.
So but he's not beyond doing whatever, because he loves the music. He loves playing with cats that he likes. So so I'm working on that, trying to get some.
Yeah, he's always been he's always been cool. I met him through Bradford. When he was playing with Branford, and Keeney and I were good friends, and I was really sad when he passed. But yeah, so I mean, Tane was just always cool.
Oh, you were friends with Kenny?
Oh yeah. See, what happened back in the day? Well, actually, years ago, really, when I started doing this show, I was at the Playboy Jazz Festival, and so that's when Bradford was playing with Wynton. So I met both of them, but for some reason, Bradford and I clicked. So later on down the line, when he went on his own, I used to hook up with him, and he was doing what was that, Royal Garden at that time, in Paramount Studios. So I went and hung out with him then. So so that's how I got to know. And then when they went to do the Tonight Show, I was always hanging out in Burbank with them. So Kenny and I really was cool. So yeah, that was a real cool thing during that time.
Yeah, and they were tight, and they came by my house together. Yeah. Kenny and Tane,
they were real tight. They were real tight.
And Kenny was just a beautiful cat, just very warm and
an incredible piano player.
Yeah, I wish I would have got some lessons from him.
Yeah, man, he was an incredible, and he was a good bass player too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he had an upright bass. We were talking. I was over at his pad, did an interview with him, but then at the same time he said, "Yeah, man, I play bass. I've messed around with it straight, so yeah, the upright, and did some things on that." I said,
wow.
"Okay, Kenny. I see you, boy. I see you." So yeah, good times.
Yeah, incredible musician. Man.
Oh man, really? Yeah, he is. My name is James Graves. This is Night Journey Rewind, having a great conversation with pianist Greg Murphy. What's in the future for you, man?
I have a trio gig in Baltimore with Tommy Campbell's gonna come down there with me and Billy Johnson, and then the night after that, that's August 30th, and then the night after that we're at Mesro, and doing some solo stuff, doing some ensemble stuff with TK Blue. I always get different calls from different people, Todd Herbert, Eric Wyatt, just trying to stay busy and trying to, sometimes I get some gigs where I can get a lot of people, and so I try to get a lot of horn players on the gig.
Right.
And I'll call that the Murph Tet, and I guess the Murph Tet could be a quartet above, but I'd really like to get some trio gigs and get Tane on it.
Yeah.
And do another recording. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the prospects. Because since I teach as well, it's been allowing me to survive. Teaching and performing. That combination, and I'm sure that's true for most musicians. And so I'm just fortunate to be able to survive and pay rent. And
I heard
keep
that.
the repo man, keep the repo man. I always say, they say, oh, nice car. And I was like, yeah, I'm one step away from the repo man. So one payment, you miss one payment. And then
they on you like white on rice, man.
You got to keep that stuff on. You got to stay on top of certain bills, or else, because if not, they'll come looking for you.
Well, cool, man. They really do. Trust me, I know about that one. I wish I didn't know, but I do know. Well, Greg, I was saying, man, great time talking with you, man, as always, and continued success to you. And to say, hey, man, well, I know what I was to say. When you guys coming to the West Coast, man? God dog.
We're working on that. We're working on that. We are actually working on that as we speak. So hopefully I'll have some good news for you soon.
Cool. Very cool. All right, Greg. Once again, thanks so much, man. Continued success to you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. My name is James Graves. This is Night Journey Rewind, and we were visiting with pianist Greg Murphy. He has a new CD out. Well, it's been out for a minute, and it's called Bright Idea. Okay.
Yeah.
If they want to get it, how can they purchase it?
Through all the regular, routes.
Okay.
You can get it. You can get it online. You can get it. Wherever you get your music from, it's there.
Cool. Thank you for listening to Night Journey Rewind. Got some good news for you. Night Journey Rewind is now on YouTube. Just type in Night Journey Rewind and you can pull it up. And please subscribe to it. You can also contact me on nightjourneyrewind@gmail.com. On Facebook, Night Journey Rewind. We're on YouTube. Please check us out. Let me know what you think and subscribe to it. Night Journey Rewind, we're on the move.